Hello there, welcome to part 8 of the Sparta Abridged campaign. In part 7, we fought many battles with Knossos in order to slowly defeat one of their invading fleets. And then they surrendered to us in the end, and that war is over. Then we very quickly went and stormed through the Massalian territories in Italy and secured our Italian province. But now we want to keep going up Italy. It's not Massalia anymore, but various barbarians, and to our northwest we've got the Helvetii tribe, and we're going to set up on the border, ready to do stuff against them pretty much right away. Need to do a bit of force replenishment here to make sure we get our units looking good, ready for next turn, then we'll be good to go. I could also go to the northeast, by the way, but that faction up there is one of the few factions on the map that was willing to trade with me, so I was going to be nice to them, I thought. Now you can see there are quite a few things right in front of us. They've got this area locked down, but they also have quite a few bad units, and we have a backup army. The relevance of the backup army is that we can do an ambush plan. We can move our main army into the forests. The backup army just stands in their territory. The AI will usually see like a half stack of your troops, think, well, let's just go kill them, and walk into the ambush zone. I was careful there to retain enough movement points to still throw down a fort on the smaller army. That's because the ambush is not guaranteed to work, and this proves to have been a useful countermeasure to take, because the ambush indeed doesn't work. They just walk past us and attack the smaller army. But things aren't that bad, because the enemy's troops just aren't very good. Now the barbarians are going to be a much easier target for us than something like the Romans, because they suffer from the unit cap. They can't put as much value into the field just because of the number of units being a limitation. The balance bar is really good, but the auto-resolve was really bad, that classic situation. So we're going to fight this one manually, and fighting it manually proves to be better than I expected actually, as we'll see. Initially our smaller army just wants to sit in the fort and delay the enemy, so we'll throw some hoplites into the gateway, and that's really all we need to do for now. We'll wait for all of this stuff to filter onto the field and go and attack the fort, while my main force we'll just hide in the forests over here. We don't want to move forward and engage before the enemy are blobbed up in front of the fort, because we're very likely to be able to rear attack all of their army at the same time once they get stuck queuing to go through the gate. Now something that's going to be to our great advantage is that the towers on this fort do appear to benefit from the buffs I gave to city towers as well. It's the same projectile type, and I could tell immediately because the rate of fire is too high for Divide et Impera. That was one of the main things I buffed, to give the towers the vanilla rate of fire. Divide et Impera normally makes them shoot more slowly but shoot more shots at the same time, so here we've got the best of both worlds. And with this, we're going to be killing the enemy really effectively just with the towers. Plus, in Divide et Impera, towers have longer range. That means the towers at the back of the fort can shoot at the melee in the front, meaning this tower defense situation is actually better than the ones we've seen before. We've got more towers shooting at a more concentrated enemy than in cases where we were defending the walls of Rome, for example. So forts, extremely exploitable. That's becoming very obvious right here. Plus the fact that the AI can't deal with forts, that's pretty exploitable too. As you can see, the thing I was hoping for did happen. They just put all their units in an enormous, completely lagged out block here, and we're now going to slam them. First with a bunch of ranged attacks from behind, going to be ignoring shield bonuses and things like that. It's not going to be quite as good as normal because the slow combat mod makes ranged units weaker in general, even with the buffs I gave to ranged units. But it's going to do damage over time, and of course we can cycle charge or even infantry attack the back of this formation whenever we want. They did actually turn out some units to stop us doing that completely effectively. We couldn't rear attack everything, and they did start breaking into the fort just with their sheer numbers, but that's not going to matter very much. They are taking extreme casualties. What I didn't really know during the battle is how much of the damage we're doing is coming from my armies and how much is from the towers. It turned out it's pretty much all from the towers, so while it looks like we're raining shots on them, that's not doing very much, but the fact the enemy have been shot by the towers for the whole battle is doing a lot. Plus, while their low morale units will rout at high strength and may escape somewhat intact, they decided to route in a direction that takes them across the fields of fire of some of the other towers, and they just took even more casualties trying to leave. Here I was inspecting to see how accurate the towers were and how powerful they were. The answer is very and very. Eventually everything chain routes. Because so much of their army are reinforcement units, we do have to chase them down manually, which does mean the towers will be killing my men at the same time. Very handy. But we get to this result eventually, and if you look at the numbers, you'll see that we killed something like 2,000 enemies, but the enemy lost something like 6,000 troops, meaning the towers did the lion's share of the work. Absolutely overpowered. And because we can just make these forts wherever, I realised this is going to be way too exploitable. I was going to leave the towers being buffed so that it would screw me over in the future as I do siege attacks. But this is too much. It's too tempting to use the towers in forts to just kill everything. So I'm putting them back to vaguely how they were before. I couldn't actually remember, but I've reduced their rate of fire back to Dividia Impera standard, and I've made the tower bolts less powerful than arrows. You can see some of the other numbers in the columns here. I also buffed boiling oil while I was here because I noticed it didn't do anything in the past. I thought maybe putting a bit of damage on boiling oil might be fun later on. Anyway, so that's that. Now back to the game. Our next move is just to attack this settlement. It's going to be defended by a bunch of reinforcements, including a full stack out there, but we can night attack all of that stuff away, and it gives us another case where the balance bar is really good, but the auto-resolve is not tolerable, especially at the beginning of an invasion where we don't want to be throwing away troops. We might need to use them after this, so it's another manual attack. I won't talk too much about this one because it doesn't matter very much. But in short, it's a night battle for no particular reason, and they have an open approach into the town, or an approach that was defended only by archers, meaning my cav can rush in there, kill the archers, and start opening up that approach freely. Meanwhile, the other units are just standing around. I was using my ranged stuff to soften the enemy up. After a while, we get low on ammo and patience, and start making our attacks. We don't need to do anything fancy here because our units are just better than theirs, and they have a lot more morale. We have a lot more morale, I should say. So, we don't have to kill very many of them and they'll go away. Here we are a bit later, we've got the enemy being attacked on multiple sides, doing a bit of micro with the cav to kill more things. These Theraphore cav that I've mentioned before are pretty good because they're hard to kill, so you can throw them in even against low level spears and they might actually rout them. All good stuff. Here's the end of the battle. We lost virtually nothing. It was super easy. Another very callous auto-resolve prediction there. We can blame the mod for that partially. I also noticed that my slingers are max rank, and I wanted to check and see what does that actually do, and the answer's not very much. I actually saw one of the developers of Dividia Impera talking about experience, and they said they nerfed what experience does so that it's not very important. Again, to make auto-resolves harder, because if you have an elite army, it does very well in auto-resolve. So for whatever reason, they just really hate auto-resolve with this mod, which sucks for an auto-resolve heavy player like me. But anyway, we don't need to worry about experienced troops, we can just let them die and stuff, so I guess that's nice. Speaking of troops, up here in the north, we can't recruit all of the hoplites and heavy infantry of the south, so we're going to start building up armies using some more Gallic and Celtic style units, which could be interesting. Then all of a sudden, Massalia decides to get involved with this. They send their navy to attack our port here, and because the Helvetii have a stack in range, we're going to be attacked over land at the same time. So a nice teaming up of the Helvetii and the Massalians, perhaps inadvertently. At least we still have a pretty good balance bar, as you can see. Since we're defending a small town, being attacked from two sides doesn't really matter. We can easily cover every direction. Plus, of course, the Massalian troops are navy crews, meaning their units are small and not necessarily very good. They land most of them on the beach near the town, all but one of their archer units. I've got their main approach into the town blocked off with the garrison. The garrison is virtually dead because it's only just spawned. But I thought, well, I'll just sacrifice them to hold the Massalians up. They're being gradually killed by the archers who didn't land. I've also got some barricades back there, which are confusing the enemy's infantry. Same at the front of the town, where the enemy cav want to attack, but they're being held back while our slingers gradually kill them. That's all going to work pretty well for us. Here we are with the Massalians stuck on that barrier and me using my cav to rear attack them. This doesn't do very much because While my Thurifore Cav are quite good at not dying, they have very low offensive stats, being a missile Cav unit, so we can recharge them a few times. Doesn't really do anything, but I did it anyway. It became immediately clear that my little garrison here is going to die virtually right away, so I started moving units to go and defend that approach. And also some more enemy Cav are killing themselves by having a skirmish with us. That's perfect for us. Our reinforcement army is gradually coming into the battle. The enemy's main stack sent a couple of units to fight us, just 2 or 3. Definitely not enough to overcome our reinforcements, but enough to make me stop and deploy in a battle formation, so they've delayed me effectively there. Now we're getting into the real meat of the fight, as the enemy infantry just try to push past my positions. They've got quite a good thing going here because they have quite a few jav units and units that can throw jabs as precursor weapons. They can hit my heavy infantry hard, and this prompted me to advance and get the fight going faster, so we're not in an absolutely ideal position with the shortest possible line or anything as a result. The group out there trying to stall my reinforcements are going to get very much surrounded and pounded. Here we see a standard bearer using the standard to fight. That's a bit dangerous, it might break. Anyway, speaking of breaking, those units are going to go pretty soon once we surround them with everything. So we'll have reinforcements ready to rear attack this position here. The enemy have naked swordsmen attacking my not naked swordsmen. Maybe our clothes give us the advantage, especially the clothes that happen to be made out of metal, but plenty more enemies are filing into this battle, and many of them will throw jabs as well. A little bit dangerous for us. Here's the end of our fight out with the reinforcements. These light infantry units don't last very long, even in cases where I'm attacking them with my light infantry units. We can out-morale them and win. So in theory, this big group will storm in to rear attack everything, but it ended up not being quite so simple as that, as we'll see. The Massalians are now just kind of stuck going up the back entrance to the town. They can't get past our Hoplite phalanx, so they're just going to stand there now with most of their troops not engaged. That's perfect. And here's what I meant about the rear attacks. The enemy actually turned out some units, some phalanxes, to face outwards. This is pretty good AI, and I felt certain I'd never seen this happen before. I thought they always just rushed in and left you to rear attack them. Maybe they think they're defending the town. It's not unheard of for the AI's mode to get switched from attacking to defending. That's a very defensive AI thing to do. Obviously, I have so little faith in Rome 2's AI that any good behaviour must be explained away as a glitch or a supernatural phenomenon. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that, and I've played this game a whole bunch, but then again maybe the mod is doing stuff as well. Now here's another little battle that's going to get started. A couple more Massalian naval units and a Helvetii admiral that happen to be sitting in the sea are coming in over on the west side of town. And I decided to use my Javcav as Javcav. I'm just going to throw a whole bunch of javelins at this admiral's unit, and because they are armoured, it's a somewhat efficient use of the Javs. The Javs have armour-piercing damage, and soon he dies, basically. Now my rear attack plan isn't going to happen, but I still attacked with my reinforcements, so now we've just got multiple battles going on over here in the east side of town. No real advantage, but our troops are a bit better than theirs, so we can grind our way forwards, just taking losses. And the enemy are gradually forgetting about defending their rear anyway, so we'll have some more rear attack opportunities on the way. And our Italian milites go and clear up one of the other fronts, so that frees up more troops for us to fall back in to those grindy fights. As for that admiral, I said he died. Well, here's him actually dying by the looks of things. I charged on him to finish him off at the end, which frees up more cav for us to use. The cav in our reinforcement group are getting ready to rear attack the 2 enemy blobs that are now here at the east end of town. Obviously a rear attack won't do anything if the enemy aren't low enough on morale to rout, especially because our charge bonus isn't very low, so it doesn't even do much in terms of killing them. We have the same issue here in the west actually. These Massalian marines got charged a few times by the cav, freed up, but it doesn't do very much. I also decided to disengage here with the cav because I realised that Areus here with the Royal Hoplites will eventually just kill all of those marines pretty easily. We don't need to worry about that front really, might as well use the cav on other stuff. We've now lost our first unit of heavy swords in one of these grinds. That's a shame because those Apulian heavy swords are a unique kind of unit. We can't really recruit heavy swords anywhere we've seen except in Apulia, which is the south end of Italy. So that's annoying, but anyway, we'll just replace them with some Germanic trash or something as we go forwards. And here comes some more cav rear attacks on the enemy blob. As I said, we need the enemy to rout for this to really matter, but sometimes they had like javelineers in the blobs, and those will die to the meager charge bonuses of JavCav. Good enough. Another check-in with the main Massalian force. They're just stuck here doing nothing. They can't engage very efficiently, and where they can engage, they're fighting the front of a hoplite phalanx, which doesn't do very much. They're also fighting uphill. So really nothing is happening there. We're not really going to be killing them, and they're not really going to be killing us. We're just focusing on finishing up the Helvetii really, and we're starting to get somewhere. I've got some slingers attacking the back of one of the blobs. Our cav keep coming in and inflicting formation breach on everything. The enemy do have some units fighting in hoplite phalanx as well, which are extra weak against rear attacks. So it's all happening, and now you can see things have thinned out. We can finish them off. The other approach over here, which was mainly just a bunch of naked swordsmen and stuff, finally gets cleared up with the Italian milites just grinding their way through the enemy. They'll kill them all because they can't leave, so that's going to be very efficient in the post-battle results. And here's a breakthrough. We defeat one of the two eastern blobs, and then we can obviously surround the final blob even more and just take them downtown. You can see the disciplined hoplite phalanx formations they've got set up here. I don't know how historically accurate that is. I guess there's only one kind of strict shield wall code in the game, so they all fight like hoplites. Anyway, with their exposed rears, we can just get in there with the horses and do some damage, which is a phrase that has many different meanings. Eventually, they're all routing, but they're routing while surrounded, and that's going to be the end of all of them. And finally we can start turning our attention to the Massalian fleet, which is still stuck in that back street. I sent my Royal Hoplites to go and be behind them to start doing a mass rear attack. The hope is that some of their leading units are near the back, so this counts as a rear attack on everything. Plus, they're all going to be exhausted. We should have a melee advantage against them and can start actually inflicting casualties, which won't so much be the case up here at the front, where our Hoplites aren't very good at the best of times. They're not really engaged either, so we're barely doing any damage. At this stage we have won the battle, but we need to convince the enemy that this is the case by reducing their morale. I ordered our hoplites to advance. You can see they're not especially enthusiastic about doing that. I think I have two units standing on top of each other here, and they're kind of blocking each other, but through some process they are gradually moving forward and making contact with the enemy to inflict morale debuffs. Towards the end I realized I had some slingers with like 2 shots worth of ammunition. I was setting them up to throw in because that would cause another morale debuff all at once, but actually the enemy chain routed all of a sudden just before I attacked, or maybe one guy threw a stone early and that caused the chain rout. I don't know, but they're in enormous trouble because they are so trapped. There are rocks to both sides of the road, the Royal Hoplites behind and just everything else in front. Because they're reinforcements, we do need to play through the route and get as many kills as I can be bothered to do for them to show up after the battle. So let's cut now to after that is done. Here is the result. We lost 1 full unit and we took some moderate damage on other units. Our garrison's gone, but we don't care about that. Overall though, a pretty decent trade. The enemy took enormous casualties. The Massalian losses don't really matter to us at this stage. It's the fact we defeated a Helvetii field army in that battle that matters, because that sets us up to immediately go on and attack them. There's now not that much stopping us just going on to attack the next town, so we do that in our turn. They've got a few guys inside, but nothing too much. And there's the garrison here, enough to give them some balance bar presence. We can't just immediately take the place. So I figured I'd build some siege equipment and do the siege attack there. I also wanted to get a peace treaty with Massalia and just ignore them, so I could focus on the Helvetii, but they wouldn't become my client state, and that's usually the deal I make people, so if they won't surrender in some way, we'll just keep coming at them. And I thought I'll send my second army to do that. We maybe don't need the second army to follow behind the main force anymore. So I thought I'll just start making this very Celtic looking army and send them west to do whatever we need to do against Massalia to get them to die or surrender. Here's a little clip, because I couldn't find the actual video, of the fact I have a fleet with like a half stack of other troops in the Mediterranean near Sardinia. They're going to be coming over to help out with the Massalia situation, and I reference that just because they'll suddenly be there in the next part, so that's where they came from. They've been sailing from somewhere for a while. And now you can see the Helvetii sallied out against me with my siege. So that's perfect for us. I was going to do it the hard way, they have offered me the easy way instead. So fine, we'll have a trivial field battle against their garrison army, which we'll definitely win, although there are loads of Helvetii territories to the north, so it's by no means the end of them and the end of their spam, as we'll see. And we'll also see that my plan to do something to Massalia ends up creating quite an interesting situation in the next part.